Welcome today to all our wonderful High Five Live friends. We're so excited to be with you. We have a treat you will never forget, and your life will not be the same. So thankful to have Denise with us, and we'll be telling you more about her in a minute.
Yes, and we would love to know where you are watching from. So if you don't mind putting that in the comments, we'd love to see it. And we appreciate you being with us today. It's going to be a sweet experience. Denise is just an amazing, amazing person. And meeting her is one of those experiences that you feel was meant to be. And because she's one of the most Christ-like people that I think I know. And so to be able to learn from her and her experiences and to watch her in action, she said she is a glass full type of person, and that is true.
So true.
So we really do appreciate you being with us. She'll tell you more about her and her story, but we just want you to know that she has been very excited about sharing that today, and we will all be changed from hearing her.
So you wait till you hear about from abandoned and orphaned to an Indian princess. It's such a compelling story, but more than that, it's Denise and her heart and who she is. So Denise, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to be with you. I appreciate it. So I'm excited
to have you here. So we have a lot of people signing in already.
Oh,
yes,
good.
We do. Minnesota, Washington, Idaho, Las Vegas, and
Awesome.
Utah. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Well, tell us how your story began. We'd love to hear about this remarkable journey of yours that's so unique.
Okay. Do you want me to go ahead and get started and kind of tell you what happened? So as a little girl, my first memories is running around in a little town named Bunkerville, Nevada. And my mother, my biological mother, had 3 children, just boom, 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 and then left her husband and moved back to her hometown of South Dakota. And she had known my father. Him and his brother had come over from India to go to school at the School of Mines in South Dakota State. And needless to say, I was conceived, and my mother was afraid that my father would want to take me to India. So she left, and she had me. And I think back in the 60s with 4 little kids and one of them being different, a different nationality, it was hard. And so I was ended up left when my mother moved to Las Vegas, and I was left with a babysitter in Bunkerville, which is about 90 miles out of Las Vegas, and left with a babysitter, and I basically kind of fended for myself. I can remember eating out of garbage cans and there was an old man that lived in a field a long ways away, and he would give me bread and milk. And sometimes that was all I'd eat, and
How old were you at this time, Denise?
I was 3 or 4, about 3 and 4 years old, and just was kind of on my own. And my mother never came back to get me, and I was basically abandoned.
I need to tell you, we have grandchildren that are almost that age.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time controlling my feelings about what that was like for you.
Yeah, I have a little picture. And so one day, I guess the babysitter that I was with was moving, and she didn't know what to do with me. And so she called the state, and I was ended up, a lady came out and picked me up, and I was put into an orphanage. And that was in Las Vegas. It was called Child Haven. And I was put into this orphanage. And my adoptive parents actually worked for the church social services. And so they would go down to the orphanage and help kids that were having problems. That was kind of their church calling. And they had adopted my brother that's older than me that had a lot of problems about a year before I was at the orphanage. And so the administrator of the orphanage called my parents and said, come see this little girl that we just got. And I was 4 years old, and I was this little Indian girl. I had long hair and big old eyes. And this is kind of one of the first miracles I remember is I had no mother. I had nobody. But when my mother walked in the door to see me, I feel like the veil was open because I saw her and I ran up to her and I told her, "Mommy, mommy, please take me home." And I knew she was my mother. And I feel like that's one of the things that Heavenly Father stepped in my life, and he had a plan for me, and I know he had a plan for me. My parents were good LDS people, and I was raised in the gospel, and I never can repay Heavenly Father for having that. As a little girl, I knew my father was from India because the babysitter had told him that my father was from India. My mother had taken off because she was afraid my father would take me. And so I always knew I was from India, and I always, growing up in a white American family, you know, you're always like, why are you different? Why are you brown? Why are you different? And I always knew, well, I'm from India. My father was from India. And I was always so proud of that heritage, but didn't know anything about it. And as a little girl, I always thought that I was an Indian princess. And one day my father would swoop in and he was a prince and I was the Indian princess, you know? So that's kind of what I grew up believing. And my father would love me and would want me. And so as my life went on, when I was in my 20s, my adoptive parents were a lot older. And so they said, we have felt really impressed that we need to help you find your biological mother. And at the same time, my sister, who was the oldest, just never could get over losing her baby sister. She didn't know what happened to me. And she had prayed and prayed that I would come looking for her. And so I ended up finding them. And it was the hand of God again in my life, how I found my biological mother. So I have 2 brothers and a sister that are wonderful, wonderful people. And I met my biological mother, and I've had a wonderful relationship with her for, you know, 25 years.
What was it like to meet her the first time? I mean,
the first time is really fun. You know how you see those TV shows and you're just like, you see them meet somebody, and we were going up to the airport because my sister and my mother flew in, and we went up to the airport, and I said, this is so strange. It's like I'm like a TV program, you know, I'm going to go meet my biological mother. And I thought it could just be any stranger on the street because I didn't know them, but love at first sight. Do you know what I mean? I just loved them, and I was so happy to be able to meet them. And you know, a lot of people always ask, you know, well, how did you feel about your mother because she left you? But you know, I've never judged her. I feel like things happen for a reason. I don't know if she ever meant to leave me forever. She just left for a while, and so I just had a wonderful relationship with her. She was a beautiful, beautiful woman, and I was happy to have her in my life. And so I feel like it was a total blessing. But that being said,
Denise is such a beautiful example. Your ability to be able to look at eternal perspective about everything you've gone through, to be able to see Heavenly Father's hand, and to be able to look at her as she really was and not for what she did.
Yeah. And you know, and another thing, she was never really able to tell me too much about my father. She just told me, you know, my father and his brother had come over to go to school in South Dakota. And so I didn't have very much to go by. And I had this burning desire to find my father and find my Indian heritage and just know about my culture. And I just never been able to find it. And I always wondered why am I not being able to find this? And, you know, and I always thought that my father had gone back to India, you know? And so now I'm kind of tell you the story about finding my father. So a few years ago, my oldest son, who's very dark like I am, I have kids that are all different colors. I have a blonde head, red hair, you know, I have all just kind of different, you know, kids that just look some like my husband, some like me. And so, but my oldest son just really felt like he would, you know, he said, Mom, let's try to find your father. And so we started looking, but we just couldn't find anything. We didn't have very much to go from. And I started really pressuring my biological mother, you know, with some kind of information. And she kind of told me this name, and I thought, oh my, you know, I don't know whether that's right. You know, it just didn't sound like an Indian name to me. And it wasn't right. She didn't know the whole name. And about 3 years ago, I had gone to bed one night, you know, and just praying about this. And I had this dream and it said, take an ancestry test. And so I called my daughter the next morning. I'm like, what's an ancestry test? I didn't know. I'm like, what is this? And she says, oh, Mom, that's where you spit in a thing, in a little tube, and they tell you where you're from. So I thought that's all that meant. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'll spit in a tube and I'll find out what part of India I'm from. And maybe I'll, can learn a little bit and try to see if I can find my family. Well, I ended up taking this ancestry test, and lo and behold, it came back. And it matched me up with somebody. And I didn't even know it did that. I was flabbergasted, and it matched me up, and the name actually kind of matched the name that my mother had given me, And so as I started searching who I matched up with, I thought this person was just a relative, and I didn't know how he was related. I didn't know anything about DNA, and I found out that his father and his uncle were the two brothers that came over from India to go to school. And so I kind of at first thought the one brother had just passed away, and I thought he was my father. I didn't know. I was trying to piece things together. I didn't have any information. And one day I was driving home from work, and Ancestry is up on the mountain by Traverse Mountain in Lehigh. And I was driving, and I had a voice basically come to me in my mind, stop at Ancestry. And I'm like, I'm not stopping at Ancestry, because I didn't feel good about, for some reason, something didn't fit right. Do you know what I mean? It just didn't fit right. I felt like I was going down the wrong road, of what I was thinking and how I was related to people. And so I kept driving. I'm like, I'm not stopping at Ancestry. And I again stop at Ancestry. And I'm like, I am not stopping at what am I going to do? Seriously. Finally, I was almost past the turn where you turn to Ancestry, and it's like, stop at Ancestry. And I just and pulled over, and the next thing I know, I'm just sitting in the parking lot at Ancestry, and I'm just shaking because I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, go talk to the security guard and say, I don't like my test results. I mean, what does this mean? He's not going to care. I didn't know what to do. So as I'm sitting in my car, and I know that I have had a spiritual experience because I can feel it. I look up, and we had just moved that year. And so we had moved into a new home and a new neighborhood. And there, standing in the parking lot, like 2:30 in the afternoon, was a neighbor of mine. And I don't really know him because I knew him, and I knew his wife, but I didn't know him really well because we serve in a single adult ward. So we don't really, go to the same church or anything else. And so I saw him there, and I said, Nate, what are you doing here? And he says, I work at Ancestry. And he was like in his 40s, and he was getting braces, and he was going to an orthodontist appointment. And he says, I'm just on my way to the doctor's office. I would never be out here. Why did you come? And I says, well, and I kind of explained. He says, well, what were you going to do? Talk to the security guard? And he started laughing at me. And I ended up, he had to take me in, and I had to get a security pass, and he had to sign for me. And he took me upstairs where they do like TLC's long lost family. And he says, I'm going to set you up with a DNA specialist. And her name's Christy Cohen. And she was a beautiful, wonderful woman. And I kind of told her my story, and she popped up on this big old camera screen, and she says, and she pulls up my whole profile. And I says, okay, so I think that's my cousin or somebody. And she says, that's not your cousin. That is your brother. And I'm like, what? And she says, that is your brother. Whoever his father is your father. And she says, I do this all the time. She says that this would hold 100% up in a court of law. He says, that is your brother. That's how serious I am. And can you imagine how I felt after all these years? I'm in my 50s, and I'm finding my father and my family that I thought was in India that I would never find. And I kept having to have her tell me over and over again that this really is my family. And the thing about it is, his father, who is my father, was still alive. At first I thought my father had passed away, but this was really my father. And the wonderful thing about it is, my father is a very, very, I don't know how to put this, but very, very prominent businessman in America. He's actually probably quite well known in India too. And he lives in Southern California. Who would think? I always thought that my father was in India, and he lives in Southern California. I was able to actually talk to him one time, and he's in denial. Do you know what I mean? And it's not like this. I think people think they get DNA test and you have this big, wonderful, happy ending.
It's not always that way.
It's not always that way. And he was very kind to me on the phone. He was very kind, but he denied, and he had a hard time accepting. He told me that DNA it wasn't a real thing. It didn't matter. But I know he's a very, very smart man. You know, he's a very brilliant businessman. And so I'm accepting of that, but it was hard. It was hard to be rejected. I felt like I was abandoned again. Do you know what I mean?
Especially when you were a little girl, you always dreamt that your dad would come sweeping in and kind of
I was yeah. And so anyways, you know, it was a disappointment, and it was like, okay, Heavenly Father, what does my life mean? But again, I have felt this pull to the Indian people. And I talked to you about when President Nelson announced that temple in India, and I just knew that this is why. I'm in my 50s. Why am I just finding about my parents now? And I'm like, I know why, because it's the Indian people's turn. It's the Indian people's turn to get the gospel. It's the Indian people's turn to be gathered up, because I feel tremendous love that Heavenly Father has for the Indian people. And I'm so proud to be an Indian person. And I'm so proud of that heritage. My grandfather was in the British, he was a colonel in the British Army, and he was a Sikh. And so I'm not Hindu, I'm Sikh. My ancestors were Sikh. They're from Punjab, India. And so I kind of, I ended up, my friend Tammy is you know Tammy really well. And so she's a wonderful help. And she happened to see you advertise for this diaspora group. It's a genealogy group. It's the Diaspora Genealogy Group. It's a Facebook page, and they were having a fireside, and she just happened to see this and said, Denise, go to this. And I ended up going there. I met you there, and I met a lot of wonderful Indian people, and it's kind of now started my journey that, you know, Heavenly Father has a plan. There's a reason why things happen. And I want to help the Indian people. I want people to start, there's not a lot of records. And so that's kind of why I wanted to get on here, is like have people start sharing. And if you have Indian descent, gather your records up. Try to find what we can do to help you and help get these stories out and get this genealogy done for this beautiful, beautiful people. They're, you know, I might be partial, but I think they're a beautiful, beautiful people. So,
yes, you are
not
beautiful.
you.
Yeah. So I just think that, you know, it's their time. I told you we serve in a single adult ward, and we had this beautiful boy. His name was Gagan, and he was visiting and investigating the church. And I was still, when I was going through the turmoil of being rejected by my father, and it was a hard thing. It's been a hard thing. And I went to church one day, and he was investigating the church, and I went to talk to him. And the light from the window kind of hit him, and he just glowed. And I just had a very distinct feeling, Denise, it's the Indian people's turn. It's their turn, and they're beautiful. And I want to just take this and let them know that Heavenly Father loves them. I want them to start gathering up their family history. And, you know, I would like to have, like I said, I'm from Punjab. I would love anybody that's listening, if you have any information on how I can get records and how I could find more about my family from Punjab, India, I would love it. My biggest goal is that I could visit India and go over there and, you know, meet them.
I hope you get to.
That would be so great.
Yeah. Do you have any questions you want to ask me, or how I feel about things, or
about the book you're writing?
Okay, so the book I'm writing, I have a really good friend. It's actually my friend Tammy's sister-in-law. Her name's Karen Hinckley Hansen, and she's helping me write my book because I'm just kind of touching on some of the things that have happened to me. But I really have had an amazing life, and a lot of things have happened. And so my book is called and I'm not sure because I really don't know anything about Indian or the language, but it's called Raja Kamira, which is the name for Indian princess. And then I was born on a Thursday, and it says, so Raja Kamira is the Indian princess that has far to go, because Thursday's child has far to go. And so I still have a long ways to go, but I want to be the person Heavenly Father wants me to be and to live the way I should, so I can be an instrument in his hands and I can help the Indian people. So that is my book.
You are doing that, and we can't wait for your book.
Yeah, it'll be good. So I'm in the process of writing that right now. And my goal is that I can get over to India, whether we serve a mission over there or whether we just go over there. But I'm excited to, I have goals, and I have goals to help out. So that's kind of my.
Oh, exciting.
Can you show us what you're wearing?
Let me show you. So this is funny. I was Indian. I thought, you know what? I went to a mall. I went to the Southtown Mall, and I went to an Indian clothing store, and I met the most wonderful family there that are Indian. And it's so fun because they love to hear my story. And I bought some Indian outfits. So I'll kind of step back.
Beautiful.
So it's just kind of fun. See?
Yes, we love
They're very colorful and they're beautiful, beautiful outfits. But I call it my Indian princess outfits. I have a couple that, as I was telling you before, they're pretty smart because these outfits are pretty comfortable. So
I just think it's so timely that we had a chance to talk when the Indian temple is having its groundbreaking ceremony next month.
And somebody just put in a comment that a young man from their ward just got called to India on his mission.
Oh, I would just.
It's happening. It is their turn, right?
It is their turn, and he is in for a treat because I feel like he will have the most beautiful experience because Heavenly Father is. I kind of got the impression like when South America opened and so many people joined the church that's what's going to happen in India.
So exciting.
Mm-hmm.
It's such
really
a privilege
is.
to have you with us today, Denise. You are such an example of courage and faith and forgiveness and eternal perspective in everything in your life. And we hope all of us can learn those great lessons from just listening to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me and let me share a little bit of my story. But I just love who I am. And you know, even though I've had rough knocks in life, I am grateful for every opportunity I've had. So
that's the point.
That's right. And thank you for sharing. And we invite all of you to please share this video with others and get the word out about this beautiful woman and her goals in life and the good that she is doing and will do.
Such a privilege. We'd like to also inform you that next week we're having Elder Bradley D. Foster, who is Emeritus General Authority and has been the Executive Director of the Family History Department, has some wonderful stories to share. So we'll look forward to seeing you next Friday at 10. And thanks again, Denise, so much. And thanks to all of you. Please share this with everyone you know because it'll bless their lives so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.